you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in a business. Not because they want to do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shit.
How you guys doing today? It's Anthony Gangi. Welcome to another episode of Tier Talk. Guys, great discussion coming our way. We're going to talk about interviewing inmates. There's a great book on the market. It comes from retired Lieutenant Joseph Pangaro. It's called The Interview. It's Pangaro Training Guide, Essentials for Police, Corrections, and Other Law Enforcement Professionals. Joe, thank you for including corrections in this. Usually we're forgotten. Hey, Joe, do you mind introducing yourself to our audience?
Sure, Anthony. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me on and letting me get to talk to this amazing audience you got in Tier Talk. You're like my hero out there. I spent 27 years in law enforcement. I was mostly in the investigative division. I worked my way through the ranks, and I ended up as a lieutenant, where they put me in charge of training and various other things. You know, so one of the things, you have a choice when you get put in certain divisions. Am I going to run with this, or am I going to have a problem with it? I saw it as a opportunity to change the whole dynamic we have in law enforcement of death by PowerPoint, to make training interesting, make it lively, make it something that people walk away and learn something. So I enjoyed every minute of my career. When I retired, I went to a school district and I became the director of school safety and security, which was an amazing experience to see what the schools really need. And they do need a lot of our help. In the course of doing that, I was teaching and training under Pangaro Training. That was my company. I taught cops, school people, business people. And then I had a company out of New York come out and say, hey, listen, we want to take you nationwide. We think you have an important message. So now I am part of the IP Video Corporation under the term True Security Design, Pangaro Training. It's a very lengthy title. But as we went along, one of the things that I wanted to do was to take some of the skill sets that I teach and find a way to put them into a book. And that's where The Interview came from.
Yeah, it's a great book. I got a chance to read it again. I just want to say this again. It's right on the title, guys. Corrections. Right next to police and other law enforcement. So obviously that to me means a lot. It's going to mean a lot to our audience. So I thought we'd come back from our sponsors. We could talk about, you know, again, a little more detail why you wrote the book. We could talk about why you decided to put corrections in that, which is very important to me, obviously. And then we could break down some of the chapters. You know, I think there's some good information that we could share that I think would motivate people to want to get this book. It's a nice, small guide that you could take with you that you could also kind of refer back to if needed. I really enjoyed this book. And for people that may not realize it, every day in corrections, we're interviewing. You know, every interaction you have with an inmate is an interaction that you could be lied to, deceived, but ultimately you're trying to get information. So this book kind of highlights how to recognize certain things. And basically the key is how to control that dialogue. That's the key. And again, just a great book, Joe. Now, guys, if you haven't, the show Tier Talks to you, brave men and women that work in corrections. So please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. Bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. We're going to go to our sponsor. When we come back, let's talk about The Interview. And again, it includes corrections. Stand by.
I wanted to attend a university that had an intelligence program. I wanted to look at problems different. I wanted to increase my critical thinking abilities. AMU offered those avenues to expand. Obtaining your degree as an adult, you're actually paying yourself and investing in yourself. You can't put a dollar on it, it's priceless. It's something that can never be taken away from you.
American Military University. Learn from the leader.
Guys, Inmate Manipulation is a course that is highly needed. It's the process that's so slow moving and subtle that you don't realize it's happening. When inmates choose to manipulate, they manipulate our need to react. Situational awareness and insight is going to save your career. It's going to save you from doing foolish things. Listen to your gut. So the more insight we have, the more we can recognize what isn't so overt, and we can correct our behavior before we fall into a trap that we can't get out of. If you allow an inmate to pull you out of your prescribed role, you are opening up a door for a host of problems. Inmate Manipulation, the psychology behind inmate manipulation. Available now. Link in description. All right, and we are back. So, Joe, real quick, I know you kind of broke down a little bit of why you wanted to put this book out there, but specifically, what made you want to put corrections in there? Because corrections is forgotten, and now you wrote a book and put us right next to the other brave men and women that work in the profession.
Absolutely. Anthony, I have always felt in my entire career of law enforcement is that the law enforcement family is bigger than just cops in the street, detectives, federal officers, corrections officers. I had to go into a lot of different prisons and jails over the course of my career, and I was amazed at the job that those people do. And when I looked at this, I said, that's law enforcement. I mean, I lock them up and I bring them in, and then who has to take care of them after that? Look after them, make sure they're not doing bad stuff. You got the most dangerous precincts in all of America are the prisons and the jails. And so when I'm writing this book, the publisher says to me, who is this for? And I first said, well, it's for law enforcement officers that interview. And she goes, well, who is that? I said, well, that's police, corrections officers. That could be a federal officer. And she says, oh, well, do they all know that? I said, you know what? Sometimes my friends in corrections get short shrift. So I want you specifically to put that on there because I want them to know you are law enforcement. I've always seen you as law enforcement. And when I wrote this book and I came up with these techniques, what you said, Anthony, is 1,000%. Every interaction with every other human being, no matter what it is an interview. And when you're in corrections, you are law enforcement and you're interviewing every single minute, probably 1,000 times more than I actually did, because you're there in that moment constantly. And that's why I included corrections.
And it means a lot because you have 27 years experience as a police officer, moved up in rank as a lieutenant. So to hear you say that, it means a lot to us because we're still fighting for that recognition. I mean, I work in a state where we are recognized as police, but there's a lot of states that don't have that recognition. So it's great to hear someone like yourself who's walked the walk and be able to compare what you do and put it at, say, well, corrections is just as important. And I think that carries a lot of weight. Now,
absolutely.
Yeah, your book is just, I like to say this, and guys, hear me out. It's a simplistic but complex read. And what I mean by that, it's very complex what you're learning, but it's how you deliver it in your book that kind of, it's informative and also like entertaining. Like it's a book that you don't put down. And I definitely believe it's a book that's based on real life experience, and that's how you're able to, it's not a death by PowerPoint. This is someone that lived it and decided to structure a book around that. And I think that's definitely something that kept me motivated throughout the book. Now, the book also, just because I know my correctional people, we like short chapters. So this book has short chapters. That's the key. So at any moment, you could pick it up, bang out a quick chapter, or go back and revisit a whole chapter. And it's structured right from the get-go, explaining the importance of an interview. It talks about how an interview starts off, the art of an interview, who makes a good interviewer, the Miranda warnings, interacting with the suspects, victims, and witnesses, the four main techniques, the keys to the kingdom, human reactions, interview preparation, case study, and then other considerations. So I thought we could just talk about a few of these just to give people a taste of what's in the book.
Sure.
So can you break down what an actual interview is and, maybe, the way your book is structured? I do see corrections in this book a lot. Explain what you feel would be an interview for us as well.
Sure. The way I look at it, and in my specific way of teaching interview, because I teach interview, I teach interrogation techniques. That's still part of what we do. And the book is really an offshoot of that. When I look at it, I say every interaction is an interview. Somebody knows something. They have some information that we want, right? They also want information from us. So an interview from law enforcement is actually a two-way street, a give and take of information. But the law enforcement side, we control that interaction. Our whole idea is to get from point A to point B with what we want, with whoever we're interviewing. Theirs is to have a conversation and try and get over on us. So this is where I'm going to say it connects to everybody, even in corrections. I did so many investigations that involved corrections officers and investigators. And it was amazing to me that, so much goes on inside those prisons and jails that people would be shocked if they understood what you had to deal with every single day. It's like a never ending call for service, as opposed to ours is over. You guys and girls never end. But the whole idea of that interview is whoever you're talking to, they have something that you need to know. How are you going to get them to tell you? So you got to break that down into the psychological components of what we need to know about talking with other people, about why would somebody tell you something that's going to get them in trouble? Why would they give you that information? Because a lot of people you see, they want to threaten people. They think they're a tough guy or a tough girl. They yell. People on the outside could care less about that. And I tell you, I've had to talk to people that came out of your institutions. They could care less that I'm a cop when they come out because of the experiences they've had. So it's all about connection. My specific, the way I talk about interview is that the most important part of an interview with anybody is to create a bond. Even if it's a short-term little bond with that person, that there has to be some human connection with them that they're going to end up telling you. And why do they tell you? Why does somebody who killed somebody, or did something, stole something, did something to somebody, why do they tell you? They feel that they've created that bond and you are their best opportunity to get out from under as best as they can, or to suffer as least of a penalty, because they have a relationship with you, even if it's a short-term relationship. So when I break these chapters down, I like that you said that. You're right. My publisher, when I sent this to my publisher, she came back to me and she goes, I know nothing really about interview or police work, but I have to tell you, that book was entertaining. You tell stories, and it is so easy to understand that my husband and I are using the techniques on each other as they're talking about it, which I found amazing. And that's the idea. They're little concepts about big things. And if you start to, you put them together, it's like, connect the dots. You connect all these little dots together, and anybody can be a good interviewer. I didn't come from a town with a lot of crime. I came from a town with no crime. I go and become a cop where there's place, there's shootings, there's people doing drugs, there's people killing each other. And I had to learn how to interact with those people. My natural gift of gab lent itself to the ability to talk to people. As I watched really good people interview, I started to put all these things together and try them myself. Well, as I got really good at it and I became successful at interviewing, I said, I'll have my own shtick. And if you read in the book, we talk about a shtick. My partner and I from vaudeville, you have a shtick. We have a way of doing things. Every one of the people in your organization, when they deal with people, you have your shtick. You have your way of dealing with them. And that's why I tried to make them easily understandable. And here's the big concept. Break them down into little parts so you can chew it up and take it in. The last thing I'm going to say before you go again, you said that, you can read it over again. Even in the book, I say, dog-ear the pages, make notes in the side of it for things that are relevant to you, that strike you, and come back and read them again. It's a complete soup to nuts. If you pay attention to this and read it and use it, practice it all the time, you'll be a very good interviewer.
Joe, we're kind of on the same page, because actually I have something coming out in the market soon, a manipulation book, but it's really meant to be a manual that is something that, yes, it gives you a good foundation, but it's meant to be revisited. And you hit on something that was so great. You're right. People in corrections, the inmates, they're conditioned to the uniform. So they're not afraid of police. I mean, they've had interactions with law enforcement. They're not afraid. So you're correct about that rapport and that trust. Most of the time, they may not realize it, but yeah, we're conducting an interview, but they may just trust us, and they may just tell us the information we need to, because we're collecting intel all the time. And by the way, guys, for people on the outside looking in, the intel doesn't just apply to what's happening in the prison. It could apply easily to what happens outside the prison. So I like that, because it really is about that rapport and that level of trust, because you're trying to get them to admit to something that they know could have severe consequences. So it's a matter of trusting the individual who they may admit that to. But the uniform, 100%. These inmates see this uniform every day. It's not about, oh, Pangaro's got the badge. It's like, no, Joe's all right. Not that they're going to call you Joe, but what I'm talking about is they see you before the uniform. The uniform doesn't exist because that's their interactions every day. If I get pulled over by a police officer, I'm quick to put my hand on the wheel, put the keys on the roof, and play the game, and I'm still nervous. But when you get pulled over by that same officer 30 days in a row, eventually I'm going to turn around and say, yo, my man, really? Like, you keep on pulling me over. So I don't see the uniform no more. I see Joe. Joe, you're paying me ass. Stop pulling me over.
Anthony, you're 100% correct, because you're right. In your environment, in the environment in our jails and prisons, you see the same people every single day. And your book, which I can't wait for that to come out, because that's going to help me understand people who commit crimes and what they're trying to, because it's all psychological. Every interaction between people has a psychological base. So when I'm looking at this, I'm saying, how is it that someone is going to interact with me as a cop? Well, they don't. The reason detectives don't wear uniforms is because you want to be just like a regular person. When you're in your environment, they see beyond that uniform because they get to know the person. You're in there with them all the time. And that person is either someone that they can trust, someone they can get over on, someone they should fear, or someone that they can intimidate. This is how people work. And that's the connection here. This is not about do these 4 things and you'll be great. It's about understanding how the human brain works. What do people see as their jeopardy? What's going to make them respond positively or negatively? And that's in a lifetime, you start to see all those things connected. And I just happen to write them down.
Yeah, I'm glad you did write it down because this is knowledge you don't want lost. I'm going to skip over a few, but I do want to talk briefly about chapter 2. You said important concepts for conducting a good interview. What does that mean?
Well, you got to understand. There are certain things about people. So when I'm looking right there now, I talk about cognitive dissonance, understanding what that is and why that's important in identifying deception. Now, deception doesn't always mean guilt. It means that people are hiding something. So in chapter 2, we talk about a lot of the concepts that you need to understand when you're going into dealing with someone. So cognitive dissonance, cognitive is thinking. Dissonance is when it's a disarray. So if an inmate or a suspect that we're dealing with has a story already lined up for why they were involved in something or why they were in an area of something, they're ready to answer those questions. When you come in and you understand some more about the person, their situation, and the other concepts like jeopardy, right? Jeopardy is what makes us as human beings respond. Whether you're in a jail cell, you committed a crime, or you're sitting at home and you did something you shouldn't have done and your wife found out. When we have jeopardy, right, it makes us physically react and mentally react differently. So when you're talking to somebody and they have jeopardy and you start to touch around that jeopardy, you're going to see when you start to mess up their story, cognitive dissonance, they'll go from the straight line they had prepared for you to all of a sudden you'll see things like they have to stop and think for a second before they answer you because they're parsing that word. They don't know what you know. They don't want to give you too much. So they're thinking about it. That slowdown in their response tells you that there's deception going on. So the great example there is if you and I are, we're both Giants fans, okay? As difficult as that is to be, we're Giants fans and we talk about the Giants and we're going on and on what we like about them. And oh, Anthony, so what do you like? I like the quarterback. I like how they're fast. They got a great kickoff team. And you are looking at me, you're answering quickly, you're responding easily. Now I'm setting a baseline for how you respond when you have zero jeopardy. We're talking about sports. Now I jump in and go, okay, listen. So what happened, and forgive me, my corrections friends, if I don't know all your terminology, but hey, in cell block D, when that guy got stuck, what happened down there? And all of a sudden you see from that easy response, that eye contact, that all of a sudden you see, in where? Cell block D? Yeah, that's what we're here to talk about. Were you down there for any reason? Was I down there? No, who am I talking to? The guy in the next cell? I'm talking to you. Were you down there? That slowdown, that cognitive dissonance tells me now there's something going. Doesn't mean guilt. It means there's deception there. They're trying to hide something. Maybe they're involved in something else. But the fact that I'm hitting on these things, you start to see some cognitive dissonance because there's some jeopardy. Now I need to understand what their jeopardy is and then juice that up. Because the more you juice up somebody's jeopardy, the more upset they're going to be, the more you're going to be able to see deception. And then you can lead the conversation where you're going to go.
Right. And I like how you mentioned, I used to teach identifying deceptive behavior. I used to work with a gentleman named Dale Sollers, very good guy, taught me a lot. Same type of techniques. You develop the baseline when there's no pressure. And then basically you get an understanding of the certain characteristics. Like sometimes this doesn't mean I'm being resistant. It could just mean I'm cold, or it could just be my natural, who I am. But I like what you said when you talked about one thing, cognitive distance. I actually mentioned that in my book as well, which is definitely something I think both our worlds do connect on. But when you were just mentioning about the pressure, sometimes what we tend to do is instead of asking somebody what happened, we may say, tell us your side of the story. because now they don't know what side you know, and then they got to start to have to navigate their story, and then you start to see where the gaps are. It's like, okay, I see you, you skipped over, like you're talking in 15-minute increments, and all of a sudden you went from 7 to 9 o'clock. Now I'm going to go back now and check to see, and then you keep on applying that pressure. But I love it because it's the jeopardy that starts to cause the person to maybe feel some level of resistance, and that obviously is something you're going to pick up on, and then that's where you're not going to be easy with. But I want to add something about this too, though. Obviously, what I want people to realize that once you build that rapport of trust, it's going to be only for a certain point until you have to get at that person. Then when you get at that person, you better be 100% sure, because at that point, the dynamic of the relationship changes, correct? Like when you start to realize that this person is skipping over and you start to go back, eventually the dynamics of the interview now becomes accusatory, if you will. It becomes into, okay, we're going to cross this line now, so make sure you're ready for it when you cross this line, because there's no turning back, right?
Right. And there's some interesting things you'll see there. And that's why I say this is why it's applicable to police, corrections, everybody in law enforcement, is that it doesn't matter if this is on a street corner or in a jail cell. This is how human beings react when they've done something they're trying to keep from somebody else. So when I look at that and I say, you see that baseline, how do they respond? Now, I sometimes I will back off the crime questions just to let them revert back. And now we'll talk about the Giants again. And I can see them revert back to that relaxed calm. And then you go back and you'll see that pressure again. And now you can say, now there's something up. There's absolutely no reason they should be like that. I call people out on it. The whole idea for me is this relationship thing, is that you go from a point of, normally it wasn't me, I didn't do it, I wasn't there. Then they go to, wasn't me, I was there, but I didn't do anything. To, I was there and I did something, but I did it for a good reason. And then your job is to use evidence, statements, cameras, whatever, to realize you were there, you did something, and you did a bad thing. And now you want to get them to the point to realize they're not getting out from under this. I'm in a jam here. And where do I, who do I call a friend? Well, that friend, if you built that relationship, is I'm sitting right in front of you. I know you're not a bad guy, Anthony. I know you got put in this position. You felt you had to do whatever excuses I can give them, whatever possibilities I can give them. And that's what I talk about. That's another thing here. What possibilities can I give you to find a societally acceptable reason to do what you did? You were pressured. You were putting that, if you didn't do this, that was going to happen to you. Listen, I understand. I'm not in there with you every single day. I'm not in that environment, man. I could see where a guy like you may have to do something you didn't want to do. Is that what happened to you? Is that possible that that's what happened to you? And what people do when they realize they're not getting out of this, they know you got them somehow or other. How do I make this as good for me as I possibly can? When you give them something acceptable, dude, I wasn't going to say, but what you're saying, I had no choice, man. I had no choice. You go with that. You put them there at the scene, you put them doing something, and I don't care why they tell me they did it, right? Because remember, it wasn't me, I wasn't there. You finally got them there. Tell me anything you want. Then I'm going to go back and take that apart. Listen, we've been talking for 3 hours here, Anthony. I know you're not a bad guy. I know you're stuck in an environment doing something in life that I couldn't do, right? So let's take a look at this. The evidence doesn't match what you're saying here, my friend. All right. You're saying that you didn't come with a weapon, but we all know that weapon came from wherever. Somebody else told us you made it, you got it, somebody gave it to you. You're hiding that for a reason. I call them right out. You're hiding it for a reason, and you were going to look bad at the end of this investigation. That's stuff. You told the truth about everything else. You're telling me the reason, things we didn't understand. But at the last minute, you're hiding that about the weapon. All people are going to think is this was all BS. You're still trying to get over. This is where you got to give me that last little piece. Otherwise, I can't do anything for you. And that's where you'll see a couple of things people do. You all know, just like we on the outside know, when you're talking to somebody and they're getting tense and they're ready maybe to fight or flight, all right, a natural human response, you will see people tense up, right? You'll see them take a deep breath. That's a reinforcing breath, right? That's a physical fight. They're about ready to fight you. They might blade themselves. They start clenching their hands. You see these signs. You know something's coming. In an interview, you will see the same kind of protective signs, just like you were saying, you might see at this point now when somebody tightens up. That's a normal human response to protect ourselves. That's why we do this. We cross our legs, cross our arms. When they take that deep breath, that reinforcing breath is usually when they're about to lie to you. Now they're reinforcing themselves and they're going to lie. Conversely, on the other side, you'll see when people are about to confess and the truth's about to come out, you'll see that eliminating breath. They'll let it out. Oh, you don't understand, man. Let me tell you. And you'll see them physically drop. You'll actually see the body language. The breath will come out, and then they might tell you more lies, but they're going to be closer to the truth now than they were before. And if you're paying attention to that, now you use that relationship to call them out on what's right and wrong, call them out on what the evidence is going to say, and then you want to be that lifeline for that person. I don't care if they think I'm there to help them or I can help them. I'm going to do my job. And if letting them think either I'm dumb, they got over on me, or I can really help them, if that gets them to get them words to come out of their mouth, I'll take it. And then I'll use my evidence to go back and find more truth.
Yeah, you know what? One thing is definitely, I believe that when we used to do this interview in class, people technically want to be honest because lying is exhausting. You know, it really is exhausting. And honesty brings about consistency, and we all want to be consistent. Also, I noticed how the room lays out too. Like, there's a partnership dynamic at first where maybe I'm sitting next to the person. And then eventually, when we start crossing into, okay, I got enough. Let me start making these allegations or these accusatory statements. The shift's going to be where I'm not next to the person. I may stand in front or stand above, never sitting down while that person's standing up, because the room has to be under control. And also even something just as, not that we would do it much with the inmates, but even just how you handshake the person coming in. There has to be some level of, your hand on top of theirs, or something that shows that you're in control of where this is going. And again, it's not surface, but it's there. It's yes. There. It highlights the fact that you're in control. Right, psychological. And also, even with the stuff, like I noticed too, like when I start to get at somebody, there's a cluster of information where, okay, maybe, they were sitting this way even before I met them, or before we started making these allegations, but then they also crossed their legs, but then they also lean back from that question. There's something about it that adds to just the folding of my arms that makes me think I can actually move forward with even something as simple as I'm having a drink. So let's say this pen's a drink, right? And we're breaking bread. And all of a sudden, hey, the Giants are great. And, I'm putting the drink over here to the side. Dialogue is open. And all of a sudden you say, were you at the bar? And all of a sudden the drink goes right between us. Mm-hmm. That little block that, may say, I didn't like that question, Joe. Yes. I didn't like that.
And that's the kind of thing that you look for. And that's where body language is 80% of communication with human beings. A lot of problems I see with investigators, no matter where they are, is they take the common problem of human communication is that we don't listen to understand other people. We listen to respond. And I see that in law enforcement, it's huge. I think you did something. I'm going to start telling you my story to get you to confess, and you start to go different. And now I'm going to jump on top of you and stop and redirect you. No, that's in the beginning. You want to listen. What is the person telling you? Words mean things. I have a whole chapter in there about words mean things. We got to understand the meanings behind the words that people use. And that can help us figure out where they're going. When you talk about that closing up, Anthony, the reality is that the reason that people do that is that when you're under that stress, you want that stress to go away. And bad guys and girls want to act like they're totally cool. They don't see, because an innocent person would be totally cool in this. Matter of fact, would even be disturbed that you would talk to me about this. And so they want to be cool. They look around. They do. They're getting rid of big muscle stress. Okay, so that's where you'll see that the foot rocking, or the hand tapping, or the rubbing the arm, or looking all around. Those kind of things are not natural when you put it in a juxtaposition of someone who's not guilty. If I have to talk to you, Anthony, about something you did not do, you should be very interested in what I have to say. You're going to sit there open. You might even be annoyed that you're being asked this question, but you're going to be looking right at me and want to know, okay, what is it you think I did? Anthony, you were down in the hallway and this happened over. That's not me. I did not do. Yeah, I was there, but I did not do that. And they're going to be open and interested, looking you in the eye. When somebody's doing this, yeah, oh, me again, right? Me again. Every time something happens, me again. Well, first of all, if every time somebody comes to you when there's something wrong, there's probably something wrong. I mean, why would they come to you every time? But the reality is when you see that close off, that disinterest, that's not normal for somebody who didn't do something. People who didn't do something don't want to be accused. They want to clear themselves. They want to look at you. They want to understand, what are you asking? Let me respond to that. They don't look around and come, I know why. You're picking on me because of this. You're picking on me because that's why you're asking me. No, that's all nonsense. When I see somebody doing those movements because they're trying to release that stress, I call it out. And I say that in the book. You see somebody tapping their foot because they're nervous, but they don't want me to see it under the table. And I look and I see that foot going. You know what I say? Hey, listen, you're tapping your foot there like 1,000 miles an hour. Am I making you nervous? Are you nervous about something here? And their response, oh, no, I'm not nervous. I've nothing to be nervous about. Okay. Can they tap their foot anymore now? Now that I just told them that they're nervous because of this? No, now they have to do something else. So that stress will come out somewhere else. They'll start cracking their knuckles, or they'll start rocking their back, or they'll start moving around. That's deception. Doesn't mean guilt. It means deception. They know something's up. It's not comfortable for them, as opposed to an honest person who's really going to be tuned into this and want to clear this up. Man, I want this to be over. What do you need from me? So you start to see that, and every question that you ask should lead to another question. We have to be curious about why this is happening. Why is this person reacting like this? And that's all part of the whole process.
Right. And I like how, like, if I'm innocent, then I'm going to be less resistant because I want to get to the bottom of this. Because at the end, I'm hoping my name gets cleared. But if I'm coming in already argumentative, wasting all that energy, where I could actually see it this way too, where if I'm innocent, I may become more frustrated as we go on and you're not believing me.
Yes.
Where I think if I'm not innocent, I'm going to come in angry already and then start losing energy and then start becoming exhausted because, I'm running out of, stories to create. And I like when you said something about words matter. I took a class by Daryl McClish called Statement Analysis, and we got a chance to observe like the real meaning behind words. And I'll just break one of them down. Was they were interviewing this female who claimed that she was kidnapped and she didn't know who did it. And it was very hard for the detectives, but they felt that the female was lying and they couldn't really pin it. And they kept on saying, you're saying you don't know the person that took you. And she kept on saying, no, I don't know him. I don't know him. I don't know him. He goes, well, it's funny because in your story, when you're telling us, how this happened and when you first were kidnapped, you didn't mention a car, you mentioned the car. Like just that simple dynamic. It's like, would have been something strange to you, where the means it was familiar. Turns out she did know the guy, but it was that one play on words, Joe, that you mentioned, really matters. But that comes when you're listening to what's said, but more importantly, what's not said.
Yes. And that a lot of times comes from experience. That comes from listening with active listening skills. Active listening skills means keeping your mouth shut, let them talk. You got to think of like a fish. You got a fish on the line. You start yanking that fish, you're probably going to lose it. Let them run out with the line. It tires them out. They tell you a million things, then you can go back and attack. And you don't have to attack it negatively. You tell me this story. I was here, then I did this, and I talked to this person. I saw that, then I saw that. Now I have all that to go back and talk about. So you said you were never at that 7-Eleven, right? I also try and lock them into their stories. Sometimes we don't ask enough questions, and then we give them wiggle room. So I say, listen, were you ever at that 7-Eleven? Any reason today you were at that 7-Eleven? Did you stop there to pull over to make a text because you didn't want to get a ticket? Did you go in there for a cup of coffee? Did you meet a friend of yours there for a breakfast sandwich? Is there any reason you were in that 7-Eleven parking lot? No, man, I was never there. I was nowhere near that 7-Eleven. Okay, that's a pretty good answer. So you know what? They got cameras in the pizza store next door because they got broken into 10 times and it shows the parking lot. I'm going to go back and look at those cameras and I'm going to see who was in that parking lot. Now, someone who was not in that parking lot is going to say, dude, get all the video, enjoy yourself because you're not going to see me. Somebody now that realizes, I am in that parking lot. Now they have to change their story. Then you'll see something like this. No, hang on, man. Wait a second. You're right. Now wait. I think a guy waved me down that I know and I pulled in there. So you just gave him every opportunity to tell you anything that you were there. Nothing. You change the fact and he changes the fact. That's deception. There's a reason for that. And I tell a funny story, Anthony. Anybody in law enforcement, we take 70% of a person's story and we're happy with it. We can't be happy with 70%. That might give us the charge we need, solve what we're doing, but it doesn't give us what we really need. We need the bigger picture. So the truth is like two hands. no matter how convoluted the story of what somebody was involved in, if they tell the complete and total truth, it fits together perfect. All the fingers have a place, everything's locked down. You get the whole truth. When people leave something out, and law enforcement officers will sense that spider sense, something's not right about this story, and you notice they tell the story, but the pinky's sticking out. There's just not, there's something about that pinky, but you know what? The guy said he was there, said he did something. She said she did this and that. Good enough. That pinky sticking out is a red flag. That's telling us maybe there's co-conspirators. Maybe there's another crime. Maybe there's another element we didn't look at. There's something. That pinky is sticking out. I go after that pinky. Every question leads to another question. Be curious. Figure out why that's out there, right? Don't leave it hanging. You could find a whole nother thing going on.
Yeah, and Joe, as we move a little further in your book, by the way, this is great advice because, as I said, we have a lot of officers, supervisors that are having these interactions every day with these inmates to, make sure that there's no threats. We deal with security threat groups. Something's always brewing. So to be able to get out information or just even look for a sign that can give you that spider sense that says, you know what? Something's not right with what he just told me. It gives you a chance to kind of, let me look a little deeper into that, because most likely we would just take it at the surface level. You mentioned something about who makes a good interview. You started talking about active listening. What else? I mean, what else would you expect from corrections to make a good interviewer?
Well, a good interviewer is really someone who can listen really well. Listening is a key because you'll find those little inconsistencies if you're listening. If you're listening to respond or to push your point of view, you're going to miss it. All right. So just like you were saying, it's a car or the car. That's a perfect example because a car could mean anybody's. The car tells me you're exactly right. I jump right. Wait a minute. What do you mean the car? What does that mean, the car? How often have you been in that car? No, I didn't say that. No, they just said it. So anybody can be good at these skills, right? I grew up in a town with no crime. I became a cop. I went to a town where there was a lot of crime. I had to learn to use whatever skills I had to watch and listen and pay attention to really good interviewers, good street cops, people that were doing their thing, and then apply that to the people I was dealing with. So when we look at these things, we got to say, who can be good at this? Anybody that wants to be good at it. This is not easy stuff. These are big concepts, but if you use them all the time, if you use these skill sets all the time, you'll start to see it become second nature. And I wrote an article in a magazine one time. It was called Curiosity. And I see lots and lots of law enforcement people that are just not curious anymore. They do this and they're done. Where I would look at something and say, well, you chose Coca-Cola instead of 7-Up. Why'd you choose Coca-Cola? Well, I like Coca-Cola. Do you like Coca-Cola better than Pepsi? Do you like that? How come you didn't drink milk? How'd you drink 2 at dinner? Because the more information I gather, the better off I am. When we would catch a burglar, I would sit down with the burglar, buy him a ham sandwich after he gave his confession and say, listen, how do you pick a place that you're going to burglarize? Right? Who was that for? It couldn't help my case anymore, but now I know what burglars think, right? You have people in your corrections office, in your corrections facilities that know that facility probably better than a lot of your officers. They live it. They're there in the quiet moments. They know where they're going to get a problem. They know where they can get out. They know they can get over. They have information. That interview with them, maybe a non-confrontational interview. Tell me 3 things I don't know about my institution. You're so smart. You tell me 3 things I don't know. Now, you might be surprised. Somebody's ego might jump in. Oh, yeah? Nah, I know a lot about this place you don't know. Yeah, tell me one thing. Well, you know what? Every day at 3 o'clock when that laundry comes through, they leave that door open over there, right? Holy moly, wait a minute. Now that's an example. Now that's something somebody might throw at you when it's a non-confrontational, you're giving them something. Tell me something. It's always interviewing. What words are they saying? Where are they saying it? Why are they saying it? What's their motivation for telling you anything? Informants, it's all the same.
Right. It's funny. Speaking of this, I used to hate LY words, and sometimes people actually accept that as it's a no, like, hey, again, kind of going back to the street scenario, but I'm sure we could apply it in the prison setting is, hey, did you go to the 7-Eleven? I hardly ever go there. Oh, he said he never went there. No, he never said that, guys. He said hardly ever. And also when you really start to get them, and all of a sudden, I like what you mentioned before too, when, you're asking questions that can hear you perfectly fine about the Giants. And then all of a sudden you ask them a question that kind of hits home that, maybe something, they have a little conflict with that question. All of a sudden, they see people, I think, want to tell the truth, so they stop themselves by, taking a second and then maybe, did you just ask me blah 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 blah, when we never had that problem before. And most likely, if you're hard of hearing, you may miss part of the question, not the whole question. So it's like a stalling technique to reframe what they want to say and go ahead and come up with an alibi or whatever it is that we're trying. It's the pressure.
There's no doubt about it. They are interviewing you, whether they know they're doing it or not. They are interviewing you. You
just reminded me, Joe. You reminded me of something real quick. You're awesome, man. You really are. Interview. Let me tell you something. Control to me has always been the person that asks the question. So, guys, if you're in corrections, and let me get Joe's thoughts on this. Is I'm going to ask the question. So if an inmate tries to reverse something and try to ask me a question, like I'll give you an example. If I'm asking an inmate a question, they come out and they say, not that I'm going to get personal with them because it's all a game, but I do want to know information, like how do they know something? The inmate goes up and says, Gangi, how many children do you have? Now, not that I'm going to answer them, it's not their business, but I may turn around and say, well, how many children do you think I have? Before I remind them it's none of their fucking business, don't get me wrong. But like you said, I'm trying to get the information, but I'm also twisting it because questions is the control. I'm not giving you that. I'm not answering that. I'm going to go back, and you mentioned that about 5 minutes ago. Come right back with those questions to maintain that level of control, absolutely. Right?
When somebody asks you a question like that, when you're telling me that, the first thing I would think is, why would they want to know about my kids? They're going to use that as a tool against me. But you got to remember, on our side, all of us, we're the good guys and the good girls. So we naturally think in positive ways. Oh, we're just having a conversation about family. It's a nice guy. We're not on the other side. When they close that door, we get to go home. They're inside and they need every piece of information. Now they got something on you. I can't tell you how many times I sat in an interview one time with my partner, and there was a guy doing cat burglaries, and he would go in and eat in the house and steal with the people's kids home and everybody there. And we caught this guy. He did a bunch of them. And we're sitting there and he's looking at my partner like this. And he knew he was going down. We had him. We had all kinds of evidence. He goes, hey, man, you live on Johnson Street, don't you? I know where you live. You got 3 kids over there. The reason he was saying that to my partner was he was trying to control that and let him, I know exactly who you are, where you live. I know where your family is. So people will use that information. They'll turn a question around we want to think that they're just asking nice questions. They're just talking. We're having conversation. People on the other side of right and wrong, they will use any information to hurt us. They want to know what we know before they answer the question, because they're going to tailor every answer to help them.
Right.
Pay attention to that.
Right. You brought up another thing. I love this. I could talk about this all day. Is sometimes they also like to get you off your track. So we have to also can't take things personal. So like we're going to do an interview and all of a sudden the inmate comes up, well, you're only picking on me because of this, this, and this. And then you try to lean off, well, that's not true. And then you justify, I would come back and say, well, why do you think that? Why do you think I'm picking on you because of these reasons, as opposed to me becoming defensive because they said those things? And I'll give an example. And we're all adults, Let's say, I'm trying to, see if an inmate's a blood member, and they're giving me some wild back and forth, right? So I'm staying calm, and the inmate turns around and says, well, you probably only think I'm blood because I'm black. And that's obviously not the reasons. So one way I could react is get mad and start justifying my position. But I don't think that's true, because blah, blah, blah. I talk to white people. Blah. The right way to do that is not to get angry. The right way to do is say, well, why would you think that?
Yes.
To keep it calm, because they're trying to zap you. They're trying to get you pissed.
Words are not just words. Words are weapons. And our society has taught us, if you say the right thing at somebody, you can use a word as a weapon. When people throw the race card, when they throw something out there, that's with a purpose, right? They may not really believe that, but they know you might believe that. And if I say that to you, you said it's going to put you on defense, throws you off your game. Hey, listen, the only reason you're picking on me is because I'm Italian. So you think Italians are all in the gambling game. Now, I could say that because I'm Italian. But the point being is that they throw that at you. No, I'm not picking on you because you're Italian. Why would you think that? That's a perfect answer. Anthony, I am not worried about whether or not you're Italian or not. I'm investigating gambling inside this prison, and 3 people told me you're running the book. That's why I'm talking to you. Oh, you kind of put it to rest right away. Don't hide from it. Don't run away from it. Unless, of course, you got really bad feelings, then you better straighten yourself out. But other than that, people will throw that at you as a weapon. They throw religion at you. Listen, I pray all the time. I would never do a thing like that. Really? if Jesus was sitting here right now, would he say you did this or he didn't do it? You know, I throw it right back at them because they use these things as a weapon to strike at you. Words are very powerful. They can do a lot of damage. They can hurt and they can change that interview. You control that interview looking like you're not controlling it, right? That means paying attention to where it's going. You can get caught up into things so easy because we're the good guys and good girls. We can be taken down a path because we feel sorry for somebody. We got to never forget who we're talking to across that table. You know, I've talked to murderers that would cut your throat in 2 seconds, and they're really nice guys. They're really very nice guys. If you give them a knife, they would cut your throat and go out the window. But they were such nice guys, right? You got to always remember who we're dealing with and why they're in the position they are and what are they trying to get out of this conversation, right? Always pay attention.
Yeah, and never let them pull you away from your professionalism, obviously, because I think that's one of the big things. There's one more part of the book I want to cover, Joe, and then we'll kind of wrap it up, and then we'll just go over where people can get the book.
Sure.
You mentioned the 4 main techniques, the keys to the kingdom. What is that, Joe? Explain that.
Okay. So again, it comes down to, and I like a lot of this. One of the things that I talk about, Anthony, at the end of the book, you'll see I talk about, can you make someone confess to something they didn't do? Now that seems, I ask a lot of people, like, no, I don't. They think it's a trick question. I would never. No, I don't think you really can. You absolutely can. Psychological techniques. The reason a murderer, a rapist will tell you that they did these things is not because you threatened them, hit them with a phone book on TV, and it's because you connected to them, you got inside their head, you worked them, and now they want to give it up, right? Unless you're a sociopath, people have a need to cleanse themselves of bad things that they did. Even career criminals, right? They got to get it out there when you present it correctly. So if the words we use, right? Did you, I call it diminishing, right? If as law enforcement, if we come in and we talk about, did you rape that person? Rape is a very strong word. Rape means you go to jail if you're anywhere near that word. Did you have sex with that person? So you diminish it. Not did you steal some? Did you take that without him knowing that you could take it, right? Did you borrow that and didn't tell him you borrowed it? Did you fire the gun in his direction? Not did you shoot at him, right? We diminish what we say so that it sounds less harsh. The whole thing for people to wrap themselves around being involved in something, if they know, they kind of think you got them. We're here. Obviously, we're here. We're being talked to. There's evidence, maybe witnesses. Now, how am I going to look here? Okay, so did I burglarize that house? Man, that's a tough one. No. Did you go in there? Did you go in there for any reason? Was it cold out and you had no place to go? Did you think it was your friend's house and that's why you went in there? Right? I don't care why they put them in a situation, what they did. Tell me why, and then I'll go back later on and take it apart. So we diminish. Then we offer possibilities as to why somebody would have done what they did. Not because they're evil, rotten, terrible people that are criminals. Is it possible that you did this? So one of the things I say, if you had to investigate stolen money out of the commissary, right? Money is stolen out of the commissary, whether they're civilian employees, law enforcement, doesn't matter. Money missing. Wouldn't it be nice to know that one of the people that had access to that location has a mother who's very sick and doesn't have insurance to pay for medication? Wouldn't that be nice to know? Wouldn't it be in there and say, listen, is it possible that this money, you borrowed it, and you were going to bring it back on payday because your mom is really sick? You told me your mom is sick. That's got to be really hard. Is it possible? And people will tell you when you hit on ones that they think are acceptable. They'll be like, is it possible you have a drug problem? I ain't got no drug problem. You're crazy. You drink too much? No, it's nothing like that. Is it possible that somebody would do this to help their mother? When you see that cognitive dissonance, because they're thinking, wow, who wouldn't help their mother? I'd rather bite into, I was trying to help my mother than I was stealing it to go get drugs or some girlfriend or boyfriend on the side. So we diminish how we describe the words. We offer possibilities. We offer alternatives. Is there some other reason that this could have happened, right? Is there something else we could have done there? And as I look through these, as I go through these, they're really very interesting. The last one is sometimes misinterpreted. It's show compassion to people, right? One thing we forget on our side as law enforcement is that because most of us are good people, the people we deal with are used to dealing with authorities in a negative way. The authorities accuse them, arrest them, do things to them. They don't see authority the same way we do. We're not afraid of authority. You say the cop pulls behind you. I get nervous too, but then you're okay because you're all law enforcement. You're going to be okay. Showing compassion to someone might be the only time they've been treated decently by somebody in law enforcement or someone in authority or someone with power, you treat them decently, you show compassion for them. Listen, I know this is a bad situation. I know nobody would want to, if you could take this back, I'm sure you could, but I didn't. Stop. I don't want you telling me you didn't do it. My case is very clear. I know you did this. My only question is this: did you do this because you're a bad person, or did you do this for some other reason? I've been talking to you for a long time. I think it's for some other reason. You know, you're not a bad person. You're stuck here. You're in here. I don't know what this is like in here, but I can only imagine it can make you do things you wouldn't have done. So what kind of person are you? Person that would do something for a bad reason or for other reasons, right? So you offer that alternative. You offer compassion to that person. I go through the whole thing in the book about, you were talking about before, what's good in the room, how close do you get? That personal space. Well, you start out far away, you end up close together. And I actually tell a story about a guy I had an interview in a prison who was getting out in 6 months for molesting kids. And I had to go in and get him to admit he did bad things with pictures that he had in jail. And I closed the gap with him, tried to connect to this guy. The story's in the book. It's really very interesting. And I got so close at the end, we're really actually connecting in this fake bubble that develops if you do this correctly. And I reached out, I put my hand on his leg, and I said, listen, it's just you and me here, man. We got to be honest about this. And this guy broke down and told me what I needed to hear. As soon as he was done, I said, listen, let's put this in writing so nobody mistakes what went on here. And he woke up. He's like, that's a second-degree crime. I'm not putting that in writing. Luckily, there were investigators in the room listening. I said, you guys all hear that? Yes, I did. Boom, you're under arrest. But that's a connection, that compassion. So we diminish how we say things, right? Didn't stab, maybe you were protecting yourself and somebody got hurt, you know, is another way to say it. It makes it seem more societally acceptable. We diminish, we offer possibilities. And where do we get possibilities? When you're talking to them, you want to find out about what's going on in their life. Are they having a problem with another group in the prison? Or are they having a problem at home? Is something going on that they're worried about? Where can you get these possibilities? That's in conversation. You talk to people every single day. You kind of know what these people are about. And then they do something, you use those possibilities. Hey, is it possible that it happened for this reason? Not the bad reason. Wasn't me, wasn't there, I didn't do it, to, yeah, I was there, did it for a good reason. You get that out of them. They put themselves there, they did something. Now your case is going to take it. Your investigation is going to take it to the bad reason. You want them initially to tell you they did something good, and then you can work it from there. It's a process. It's something that can really take you to places you didn't think you could go. I mean, when I've talked to people who killed people, that's police work, any kind of police work, law enforcement work is not about the handcuffs and the fights and the guns and the cars. It's not about that. It's a person-to-person relationship. All of law enforcement is a very intimate business. And I don't mean sexual intimate. I mean intimate, where you're dealing with people at their worst, in their fears, in their horrors, the things they've done bad, their guilt. You're right down in that mess with them. Understanding that, what's their jeopardy? How do you get in their head? How do you connect to them? Is how you're going to get confessions, how you're going to get admissions, how you're going to get people to trust you and tell you things. It's just shocking that people will tell you the bad things they've done.
Yeah, and I'll tell you something, just to, you know, as we come to a close, it's very important that we actually share this dialogue, because I like what you mentioned, the one thing where, you know, those bigger words, those more like the rape, where they connect themselves to the consequences. They don't look at the effect, look at the consequences that connect to it. So when you diminish it and then try to come up with a unique justification, that's something you could always attack later. But the key is I need to get to admit that they were in this house.
Yes.
You know, I need to get to admit that they had some type of relations with this woman. So, I mean, look how progressively it's moved. So, as I said, even in the prison system, it matters. I mean, you know, we could have attacks on individuals all the time. And, you know, the inmate that got attacked may not want to speak, but that doesn't mean we stop investigating. You know, we have to continue investigating, even if the inmate that got assaulted doesn't want to cooperate. So that's when we're, you know, our investigative divisions, our officers, our supervisors, they're going crazy to try to figure out, you know, exactly what happened, to piece things together. Or, you know, we could have attacks on our staff in which, you know, that we need enough information at our level to pass over to the prosecutor. If we don't give them enough information, they're not going to take the case. That's why, believe it or not, it's very important that we do work together, and also with the Special Investigative Division, to make sure that, you know, they also have the training. So if we have a concern, these cases can actually be upheld in the court. And
no doubt about it.
Yeah, because if you right now we have officers get attacked and for some reason the cases disappear because you have to be able to present so much where the prosecutor can't throw it away.
Right.
And something as good as an admission will hold so much weight. But again, that comes from people like yourself who know the art of the interview. And just real quick, just to show the book again, it says corrections, the art of the interview. Hey, Joe, you have anything you want to say in closing?
Yes, I do. First of all, I want to tell you how important I think the men and women of corrections are. And I mean that from my heart. It's not because I'm talking to you, Anthony. You knew that when I first met you. We are all one big family here. If our family of law enforcement stops doing our job, then this country falls apart, because we saw in Superstorm Sandy, the first 3 days people were sharing food, sharing electric. By day 4, when the gas ran out, people were shooting each other and hoarding stuff, right? If we disappear, if law enforcement disappears or has a falling out, it doesn't work together, our society falls apart. The men and women of corrections, you have the absolute toughest jobs in all of law enforcement. At the end of the day, if I don't see anybody bad that day, I didn't see anybody bad. All you see is bad guys and girls all day long. You walk into that place. I remember my first experience going to a jail. I pulled up. They cracked that first door. I drive the car in. They close it behind me. Now they open the other one. I go in. They said, put your gun in here. And I said, you want me to leave my gun in here? This place is full of bad guys and girls. And you're walking around in there. And they're interacting with they're creating that environment, and they live there every single day. That is powerful. That is necessary. Not everybody can do that job. So I've always thought that it's amazing. And that's why I include corrections in everything that I do. When I teach, I teach classes all over, Pangaro training, true security design. We teach classes all over. And every once in a while, I'll see a corrections officer in the class, whether it's crisis de-escalation or interview interrogation or criminal investigation. I said, why are you here? Because we need to know this too. Yeah, you're talking about building cases. You're law enforcement investigators. You got to build a criminal case to keep somebody locked up. Otherwise, it's just something that happened in the prison, and that's not right. You got to investigate these things, get an admission, get a statement, lock them down, hold them accountable for what they do. So that's kind of the idea. That's why I include everybody in this. This is important for all of us to keep our society together.
Well, I definitely think it's an amazing book, guys. If you get a chance, Joe, how could I get this book? I mean, Joe, can you show them as well? You have it on your end?
Yes, I have my copy right here.
Yeah.
And first of all, I got to tell you, Anthony, I appreciate you reading it for me, because you gave me some nice quotes, and you're somebody that I trust. You're somebody that has a voice. Obviously, you're a leader, and your opinion. I was a little concerned. I want to get Anthony's opinion. Maybe he won't like it, but I had to do that to see if it was good, and I appreciated that. So you can get this book on Amazon, Amazon.com, The Interview by Lieutenant Joseph Pangaro, or you can go to the publisher, which is looseleaflaw.com. Looseleaflaw.com. They have it there, or Amazon has it. It's available all over the place, and they ship it right out. It's nice colors, nice blue colors, and a lot of information. So, Anthony, I can't thank you enough for bringing me to your audience, and to the men and women of corrections out there. We are one family.
Yes, all day. And again, thank you for putting us in this book. Thank you for calling me, wondering what my opinion would be, because again, we feel forgotten. So it's great to hear someone who's got 27 years as a police officer say, "Hey, your work behind the wall is just as important as I work on the streets." So it humbles me. So as always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. If you haven't, please subscribe, interact, engage, comment, hit that bell. The bell's going to notify you every time I post a video. Little moving furniture upstairs. We got 2 young kids. I think you guys can hear some movement up there. They're running around. I got a 7 and a 3-year-old. So they're probably, I don't know what the hell they're doing, to be honest with you, but my wife's up there. So, but as always, guys, the show is Tear Talk. Stay safe.